Welcome to this session on Hegel. In this session, we are dealing with the Hegel's philosophy of absolute idealism. Hegel is a prominent modern German philosopher and he is referred as a philosophical idealist or philosophical monist. Monism is a philosophy which says that reality is only one. Monism is usually referred as an important philosophical concept both in West as well as in India. According to Hegel, mind or spirit is the ultimate reality. Everything is interrelated within the vast complex system of the whole, the absolute. The absolute is a concept which has been developed both in India as well as in West. An Indian system, we can see the absolute in its various dimensions, but in Hegel's system we can see certain differences also. Hegel methodically constructed a comprehensive system of thought about the world. He made a systematic approach by making absolute consciousness the key source of ultimate connections among all other things. Moreover, he held that reality must be rational so that its ultimate structure is revealed in structure of our thought. According to Hegel, world is a reflection of mind which alone is truly real. This conception is usually related to the idealistic aspect of his thought. He held that limited being presupposes infinite, unlimited being within which the infinite is dependent element. And in this session we have to see some of the important works of Hegel, because this has got his connection to his philosophical ideals. And important works are the history of philosophy, then the phenomenology of spirit, the science of logic, lectures on aesthetics, the philosophy of history. And these important works reveal his important aspects related to the philosophical ideals, especially the ideas related to aesthetics has been developed in his concept upon aesthetics. Development of absolute idealism has to be studied in detail. We give a brief account of the development of absolute idealism in this session. Idealism is a doctrine which teaches the theory of supremacy of spirit over matter. Hegel was influenced by Plato, Aristotle, Spinoza, Kant, Fichte and Schelling. These are some of the thinkers I have taken these thinkers from ancient to the modern period. And Plato, the famous Greek philosopher, speaks of idea of good at the apex as ideal. Aristotle has called the idea as the form of forms. This highest form molds all things of this world. Hegel's absolute idealism has been influenced by Aristotle. Aristotle is another prominent thinker. He is known among the history of philosophy. And Aristotle is also a thinker, as you know, contributed to the theory of logic also. Hegel's thought had closer connection with the pantheistic thought of Spinoza, which conceived matter and mind as attributes of one substance, God. As you know, pantheism is the belief which says that God cannot be separated from the world. God and the world are identical. Hegel owes much to Kant for deriving the key concepts of his idealism. Kant is considered as the first of German idealists who tried to bridge the gap between rationalism and empiricism. That is why sometimes Kant is referred as the second father of modern philosophy, because he made certain new methodology in developing Western philosophical thought. And he had a conception of things in themselves. Kant's transcendental idealism held that things exist outside our mind are real. They are things in themselves, but we cannot know them. The thing in itself is transcendently real and empirically ideal. Fichte, the author of Science of Knowledge, analyzed Kantian notions and asserted that one should emphasize the knower and not the known. According to Hegel, all philosophy and all reality begins with transcendental ego. For him, objects exist as objects of consciousness. You see, every objects have to be observed from the level of consciousness, because everything reflects in our consciousness. That is one of the basic aspects in idealistic notions. Another notable development of idealism is reflected in the writings of Schelling. Schelling is a very significant thinker, and he tried to develop an adequate interconnection between subject and object, or knower and the known. Nature and mind, being and thought are not two parallel aspects of the absolute, but different steps or stages in the evolution of absolute mind. Absolute idealism is an ontological monistic philosophy that conceives the being as ultimately comprehensive and all inclusive. The world is equated with an absolute or objective thought. According to absolute idealism, matter is not mind. At the same time, the mind is foundational to matter, and it provides access in understanding matter. According to this, the things of experience are not real, and the best reflection of world is found in self-conscious mind. The finite world is a reflection of mind which alone is real. Scientists analyze the material world. Scientists refer to a conscious mind. So, matter cannot be thought without a mind. Here we see the relationship between matter and mind, and how the matter-mind dichotomy is discussed in a different perspective. And matter is ultimately regulated by scientific laws, and laws are ultimately thoughts. Thus, matter consists of thoughts, and thoughts cannot be understood without the thoughts of scientists. Here also we can see how the matter thoughts relationship is beautifully explained. And Hegel considers philosophy as a rational insight which follows from the intuitive insights into the happenings of the world. And intuitive insight has got certain specialities, without any sensory perception, we directly receive knowledge in intuition. One of the salient features of Hegel's position is his emphasis on the distinction between science and philosophy. See, science philosophy distinction is a major aspect that has been discussed in all philosophical areas. According to Hegel, science is the work of understanding, and philosophy is concerned with reflective intuition and speculative reason. And speculative reason also plays a great role in developing our thoughts. Hegel proposes the concept of concrete universal to account for the explanation of internal relations. The doctrine of universals in Hegel's idealism is an improvement over the positions of Plato and Aristotle. For Plato, concepts are human, and they are means to disclose the essence of things, which are popularly referred as idea. According to him, ideas have independent existence. Here also you have to remember one thing: Plato is very well known for his theory of ideas, and theory of ideas have made a remarkable change in the philosophical perceptions. Plato wanted to affirm that ideas are real, though they have no sensory level existence. Ideas, one of the peculiarities of ideas is that it does not have a sensory context, because ideas exist in a different world. There are issues like the relationship between ideas and things, and relationship between ideas and themselves. Aristotle had the conception of forms which are not found independent of things. Aristotle is another prominent thinker. He is very related to Plato, and he developed certain notions which are very peculiar. And forms are the reasons of things, and at the same time they are the inmost pervasive principles. Plato says that ideas are empty abstractions. They have been reached by taking away particular qualities and other details from the concrete objects. Take for example a white flower. The quality of whiteness has been formed by emptying all the qualities of flower. The qualities which constitute white flower cannot be deduced from the idea of whiteness. So, Hegel held that Plato failed to relate ideas themselves. So, here we can see a criticism of his conceptions and how he develops the notion of concrete universals. Hence, ideas must be more than empty abstractions. That is also another peculiar feature which we have to note in his discussion. Hegel held that ideas must be concrete. According to Hegel, a concrete universal is not formed by stripping away the constitutive aspects of particular things, but the particulars flow from the universals. Here also you have to note down that the relationship between universals and particulars are also expressed in Indian views, especially in some of the theories of Nyaya system. And they have got the conception of universals as well as particulars, and their relationship is also expressed as something which is inherent or an inseparable relationship. That is also a notable aspect of particular universal relationship. Here we can see how he develops the ideas related to these particulars and universals in a different manner. The concrete universal is a whole system. One who know the whole, parts automatically follow from that. It has been described by John Cade as the organic universality. Organic universality is another term that has been discussed by the prominent thinker here. The form, place, structure and function of an organism are determined by the idea of organism, of which they are parts. When we refer to a leopard, we know the kind of paws, teeth, eyes, stripes, tails and the physical structure of the organism concerned. The whole determines the parts. So, this example shows how the whole part relationship has been examined. As we know, the whole part relationship is also another significant area in the study of philosophical aspects when we deal with epistemology. Thus, the notion of concrete universal is logically prior to particulars. The particulars derive their meaning and function from the whole. So, here also he develops the notion of particulars as well as the whole, or the single as well as the general, or universal as well as the particulars. The whole is sustained by its parts. Unlike in a mechanical system, the relation between parts and whole is quite obvious and necessary in an organism. There is an inherent teleology which combines the parts in an integrated whole. According to Hegel, the whole world is unified in and sustained by one absolute idea, which projects itself into plurality of objects. Hence, absolute idea is system of all ideas. Hegel's conception of human society is very peculiar, and the interpretation of it is based on the conception of organic unity. It is to be noted that Hegel had a very wonderful discussion about human society and how this human society evolves. And he also discusses about the relationship between individual and society in a philosophical manner. The whole human history becomes sensible only if it is treated as one single organism. So, the organic relations which we have discussed earlier is related to human society. The holistic interpretation of human society is also very intimately as well as sincerely discussed by Hegel. An individual has to be a part of society by engaging in social activities, including practicing morality. Thus, he becomes the torch bearer of cultural heritage of people. So, the individual has to socialize and become part and parcel of society. Thus, it should not lead to the assumption that individuals exists prior to family, whereas family comes first and individuals are indispensable parts of it. Here also you have to note the interrelationship between individual, family and societies. This is also another peculiar mode of discussion by Hegel, and in his analysis generally he speaks about the different aspects related to some of the dialectics. There also he says that when one thing comes, the opposite comes, and later the synthesis will also come. Like that, society is also dialectically explained by Hegel. The concrete universal or the absolute idea is a system in which the individual, tribe and nation are interrelated parts. Man is not isolated. This is another significant point to be noted by those who analyze Hegel's philosophy, because man is related and analyzed in a social system and he is not an isolated being. That is why he says that man is organic to nature and life, and he is never an alienated being, because he is part and parcel of society, even though he is part and part is related to the whole. So, therefore, this holistic relationship is beautifully blended here. This kind of discussion, as I have said earlier, is noted in some of the Indian conceptions, where how the whole part relationship is beautifully explained. And Hegel's famous statement, the real is rational and the rational is real, is significant in this context, because this is a very significant principle which we often discuss in Hegel's philosophy. Hegel means that the whole universe consists of ideas which are interrelated in a coherent rational system. Hegel calls this relation as logical. Dialectics for Hegel is not a mere method of philosophical inquiry, but represents the order in which the absolute idea evolves progressively to accommodate the diversity and differences of all phenomena. Hence, dialectics explains the peculiar way of working of human reason that can grasp the rational plan followed by the dynamic world in its evolution. In Hegelian idealism, dialectics is therefore both methodological as well as ontological. This aspect has to be highlighted in our discussion, because many analysts as well as critics generally discuss only methodological aspects in dialectics, but the ontological aspect has to be taken into consideration. The term dialectic is derived from the Greek, means to argue. Dialectical method proceeds through three stages: thesis, antithesis and synthesis. Thesis embodies a particular view or position, antithesis provides its opposite position, and synthesis reconciles the two and becomes the basis of new thesis. This process repeats or continues. Here the dialectical moment is the logical unfolding of thought. Dialectical process involves the transition from abstract to concrete. Hegel applies dialectical method to understand and explain the evolution of absolute idea by analyzing what he called the first triad of being, non-being and becoming. Pure being is abstract, as it is free from all determinations. This conception of pure being is also noted in Indian conception of the absolute. That is also sometimes described as Brahman in our Upanishads or Vedantic tradition. So, as soon as we conceive it, it is determined by thinking and becomes negated in non-being. In this process, the being becomes non-being. This becoming is more concrete, as it includes non-being also. Becoming is a bare change. It will develop its antithesis, which will eventually lead to another synthesis. As the dialectic advances, the succeeding categories become more and more concrete till the absolute is reached. The absolute is the most concrete of all categories. In the highest category, all the previous categories are preserved without the loss of any of them. Hence, Hegel's system is often referred as concrete monism in contrast to abstract monism of Spinoza. Spinoza is very noted philosopher, Western philosopher, who generally speaks of this kind of abstract monism, and his theories are very prominent in Western philosophy. The absolute for Hegel is concrete in itself and unfolds itself. This all inclusive reality attains self consciousness in human reasoning. Absolute idealism of Hegel highlights relation of parts to whole. In an organism, this relation is significant and this relationship is extended to truth and reality. This organic whole is similar to a successful work of art, because in every work of art you see the different parts are interrelated. Sometimes they are referred as organic unity. In Hegel's aesthetics, he discusses about the organic relationship of different parts of art. So, that comparison is usually suitable here. The whole logically determines the character of each part. The absolute is the world in its unity and completeness. The absolute is infinite and all embracing. Each of its moments is an organic part of the universal law of reason and the laws of the universe. Hegel's idealism explains abstract and concrete in a unique way. Now, let us summarize. We have seen a brief analysis of the absolute idealism of Hegel and its peculiarities. Idealism is one of the philosophical aspects which has been widely discussed and which is often opposed to materialism. But in Hegel's thought, we can see that he tries to integrate the abstract and concrete by developing the conception of concrete universals and the conceptions of organic unity. Moreover, he tried to have links with the Indian conception of the absolute. We can see many parallels in Indian thought, especially Vedanta thoughts and the philosophy of Hegel. Here are some topics for your assignments. 1. Evolution of absolute idealism. Next, biographical sketch and major works of Hegel. Third one, Hegel's conception of concrete universals and its philosophical implications. Next, critical evaluation of dialectical method. Here I say some books for further reference. Phenomenology of Spirit by Hegel is an important work. Next one, The Science of Logic, that is also by Hegel. Pingard Terry's Hegel's Phenomenology is another important work. Then History of Philosophy, written by Frank Tilly, that also covers a good area on Hegel's philosophy. Massey, Critical History of Western Philosophy. Then there are electronic sources also, Hegel and Absolute Idealism, Philosophy, pages. Then another source is Absolute Idealism, New World Encyclopedia, www New World Encyclopedia org entry. And Hegel's Idealism, University Publishing, online university publication. Then Absolute Idealism, Wikipedia, free encyclopedia. Thank you for listening to the lecture. We meet next time. Thank you.